The first was a distraction, the second a habit, the third an escape. Each one occupied a different space in my mind and body, and I convinced myself that as long as they never crossed paths, as long as everything stayed organized, no one would get hurt, not even me. Saying it like that sounds cold, cruel, and it was. But at the time, I didn't see it as betrayal. I saw it as survival, as a way not to feel invisible. I was married to a good man, steady, decent, and completely predictable. A man who loved me. And that's the twisted part of this whole story. He really did love me, but I didn't know what to do with that anymore. The first one came effortlessly. Work, silly chats, elevator laughs, late night texts. No planning. It just happened. A beer after work, a few glances, my ring hidden away. The easy ones are always the most dangerous. With him, there was no guilt. It was light, a lie without weight. The second was different, slower, deeper. He was the one who listened, who knew how I felt before I even said it. With him, it wasn't just desire, it was refuge. He sought me out when I argued with my husband, when I felt lonely, even while being with someone. With the second, I started justifying myself, creating a version of me that needed saving. The third arrived when I was already broken inside, and he was the worst, because that's when I fell in love. Not with one, with all three, in different ways, but real. The first made me feel feminine, the second made me feel understood, the third made me feel alive, and my husband made me feel safe. I had 4 lives, 4 versions of me, and none was complete without the others. I never wanted them to find out about each other. I never wanted them to collide. I was the only one who knew everything, and that power intoxicated me. With my husband, I was still the perfect wife, the one who did the shopping, the one who asked about his day, the one who lay beside him at night with her phone face down. He looked at me with love. I kissed him with guilt lodged in my throat. With my lovers, I was something else. With one, I laughed. With another, I cried. With the third, I got lost. And between each encounter, I assembled an impossible puzzle to maintain long term. But in that moment, I felt untouchable, unstoppable. I never thought I was a bad person. I told myself I was just living, that everyone deserves to feel desired, that as long as I didn't cause direct harm, everything was under control. Lies, but I believed them. I learned to lie with details, specific schedules, names of places that didn't exist, excuses that could be verified. I learned to remember which version of myself I had used with each one, to change my tone of voice, my perfume, my way of writing, everything. I didn't improvise, I planned. And that made me feel smart, superior. I believed they could never catch me because no one suspects the woman who does everything right. The wife who never yells, the one who is always there. What I didn't know was that while I played invisible, someone was already watching me differently. Not my husband yet. Someone else. Someone I hadn't put on my risk list. But I didn't know that at the time. At that moment, I only knew one thing. I was in love 3 times, and I slept every night with someone who had no idea about any of it. And said like that made me feel powerful. I learned quickly that the key wasn't just avoiding being caught. It was always seeming the same. My husband never suspected because I was consistent. I came home at the expected time, prepared, put together, but not overdone. I smiled, cooked, made small comments about his day. Everything perfectly calculated. And while he was convinced I had no secrets, I was already sending disappearing messages, organizing my next date, planning which lover I would see that night, and figuring out how to make sure one didn't interfere with the other. The first, the distraction, was spontaneous. He worked near my office, so any coffee or casual meeting could turn into a 30-minute hotel escape. No long excuses were needed, no elaborate stories. A short text was enough. "I'm nearby, stop by quickly." He never asked questions. The best part was that I could disappear and return home with my smile intact, and my husband wouldn't notice a thing. The body, the touch, the laughter, it was all a game. The second was more meticulous. With him, I had to schedule exact times, fake work meetings, invent client calls that only existed on my phone. I memorized my husband's patterns. When he took breaks, went for walks, showered, I studied him like a police case. With the second, it wasn't just sex. It was emotional, a conversation, feeling understood. We met in remote cafes, libraries, parks where no one knew us. Each encounter was an escape, a place where I could be myself without guilt, though guilt stuck in my throat every time I returned home. The third was dangerous. With him, there was no routine. Every encounter was a leap into the unknown, an impulse. His schedule was irregular, his gaze disarming. He made me feel alive in ways the others couldn't. Everything with him was intense. Impromptu dinners, roadside hotel getaways, late-night calls. There were no rules, only adrenaline. And it was with the third that I realized I was in love. Not just with his body, but his mind, his laugh, the way he spoke to me. I felt something with the other two as well, but with him, it was a different kind of vertigo. My husband remained blind. I cared for him diligently. I made sure he noticed nothing unusual. Laundry done, makeup intact, bed free of traces. I never wore overpowering perfume. I never made calls from home. Everything happened in neutral locations, far from our neighborhood, away from prying eyes. It was a delicate balance, a constant juggling act. To keep things under control, I developed an almost obsessive system. Notes on my phone, appointment schedules, message reminders, hotel names, cafe addresses, even car positions so they wouldn't cross paths. I calculated every traffic light, every route, every potential timing overlap. I felt like a logistics expert, and that gave me a sick sense of security. But it wasn't just logistics. I started falling for each of them in different ways. The first made me feel desired, important. His gaze said, "I want you now," and that filled me with power. The second listened, cared, spoke gently when I needed to vent. With him, I felt a deep connection I had never felt with my husband, even though I loved him. And the third challenged me, made me feel I could break everything without fear, that I could be myself without chains. And I fell. For all three, in different ways, but all real. The emotions started mixing, becoming confusing, and the sense of control grew fragile. Every time I came home, I watched my husband and told myself I loved him and that he didn't deserve this. But I couldn't stop. I didn't want to. What I did with my lovers gave me life and made me feel more like myself than any gesture I made with him. It was a vicious circle. Love, desire, guilt, ecstasy, repeat. I started creating routines to avoid suspicion. Mondays and Wednesdays were for the first, Tuesdays and Thursdays were for the second, Fridays and Saturdays were for the third. Sundays were for my husband and the illusion of normalcy I needed to avoid giving myself away. The days were a mix of schedules, excuses, deleted messages, laughter, hugs, glances that couldn't meet, and yet sometimes did. There was never a collision. None of them knew about the others. And as I organized everything, my pride grew. I was shameless, yes, and I knew it, but I felt powerful.
poor man, I sometimes thought of my husband, trusting blindly, sleeping without suspicion, sharing his life with me as if I were one person. He didn't know his wife had divided her heart and body into 4 separate pieces, all at once. The worst part was that each of them made me feel something undeniable. It wasn't just physical. It was the mix of attention, desire, emotion, passion, and care that I received distributed among them, as if each filled a different void in me. And I reveled in it, fully aware of the risks that the day one discovered the others would be chaos, but too intoxicated by adrenaline to stop. And there I was, every night returning home, hugging my husband, pretending everything was fine, while secretly planning the next encounter, reviewing the messages I had to delete, the places I would meet, the stories I would invent if anyone asked. I felt invincible. Until, of course, someone started noticing small inconsistencies. A casual comment overheard from a friend, a message intercepted by accident, a coincidence I hadn't anticipated. And there, without realizing it, the first threads that could unravel my perfectly woven web began to close. But I didn't know that yet. I was still in love with all 3. And while I did, my husband continued trusting, laughing, hugging me every night. Shameless, perfectly calculated, and above all, alive.
It didn't take long before the first crack appeared. I continued my calculated routine, first, second, third, all under control. But no one is perfect, least of all me, with my heart divided into 3 parts and my mind obsessed with not getting caught. It was an ordinary Tuesday when everything started slipping out of my plans. That day, the third had arranged to meet me at a cafe about 20 minutes from our house. Everything seemed perfect. No one recognized us. The table was private. It didn't take long before the first crack appeared. I continued my calculated routine. First, second, third, all under control. But no one is perfect, least of all me, with my heart divided into 3 parts and my mind obsessed with not getting caught. It was an ordinary Tuesday when everything started slipping out of my plans. That day, the third had arranged to meet me at a cafe about 20 minutes from our house. Everything seemed perfect. No one recognized us. The table was private, phones on silent. We laughed, talked about everything, nothing, plans we would never actually keep. And then, as I looked at him, a shiver ran down my spine. A familiar voice behind me. A woman who had worked with me years ago. She saw me, recognized me, and her face changed. She didn't say a word, just watched us, and I froze. It wasn't the first time someone had seen us, but this time there was a detail that made me tremble. My husband knew her, not directly, but he knew of her. And when she left, she sent a message. I saw you with someone. I don't think it's your husband. That's when I realized not everything was under control. A short, indirect message was enough to make me doubt for the first time since this madness began. My heart started racing, not from excitement, but from fear. Yet, at the same time, there was a hidden thrill in that fear. It was real, pure adrenaline. The second incident was even more direct. I was at home, alone, watching TV, when someone knocked at the door. It was a delivery person with the package for my husband. Nothing seemed unusual, but the package was large, bulky, and had a label from a fancy restaurant. My husband never ordered anything like that. Never for me, never for anyone. Curiously, I opened it. Inside, Photos of me with the first lover. Photos I didn't remember leaving anywhere. Photos he'd never seen, but someone else had captured them. My blood ran cold. I couldn't believe it was so easy. Someone was tracking, watching, connecting the dots I thought were invisible. It wasn't my husband yet. It was a third party, someone who knew too much and had somehow obtained proof without me knowing. I felt a mix of anger and excitement. How dare someone get so close to my perfect secret world? At the same time, my three lovers were demanding more of my time. The first became more insistent, the second more emotional, the third more possessive. I started realizing my mind could no longer divide itself so easily. I felt like I was playing with fire. Every call, every message, every encounter could be the end. But I couldn't stop. The thrill of being chased, of feeling that someone might discover me, had become intoxicating. Then my husband began to suspect indirectly. He didn't ask directly, he didn't confront me yet, but he started noticing inconsistencies, arriving home slightly late, a perfume he didn't remember, stories that didn't quite add up. Small things, as always, which I had ignored for months. I kept my composure, looked him in the eyes, and smiled, convinced I was safe. But inside, fear began to grow. The third made everything more complicated. With him, I felt more alive, bolder. He started suggesting plans that were impossible to hide. He joked, but his tone was serious. I don't think you can be in 3 places at once without someone noticing. I laughed it off, ignored it, but the comment lingered in my mind. Reality was catching up. One afternoon, the first sent me a message that changed everything. I saw someone else following you. At that moment, my world began to wobble. I had been watched without realizing it, and now the threads were starting to cross. I, who had always been careful, had left a trail, and the truth was beginning to seep through unexpected places. My husband, though still without proof, began to watch. Nothing obvious, nothing that could directly accuse me, but his questions, casual comments, glances, they all became more intense. "Did you have a long day?" was his new way of asking, and I knew that behind that phrase was suspicion. Every answer had to be perfect, convincing, immediate. One mistake, and it would all collapse. The second lover also noticed changes. He demanded more attention, more contact. And there I was, mentally calculating every second, every conversation, every meeting. My heart raced, not from excitement, but from pure fear of being caught. But the mix of pleasure and terror was addicting. I felt alive, powerful, capable of handling it, until something inevitable started closing in. Evidence. The third forced me to take risky decisions. He wanted to meet in a public place where someone could recognize me. I agreed, confident, but fearing this might be the mistake that exposed all of us. As we walked, I saw a look that froze me. An acquaintance of my husband, someone who shouldn't have been there. Adrenaline coursed through me from head to toe. For a moment, I thought about running, disappearing, giving it all up. But I didn't. The thrill was too intense. That's when I realized my double life was no longer just a game. Every move, every lover, every lie, every smile for my husband was in danger. And as I understood that, I also realized something else. I had fallen in love with all three. Each occupied a different space in me, and now that the threads were starting to cross, the truth was about to come to light. I knew the day my husband discovered something would be inevitable. It wouldn't be technology. It wouldn't be an accident. It would be someone seeing, someone recognizing me, someone connecting the dots. And as that moment approached, my heart divided even more between fear, guilt, desire, and the certainty that no one was ready for the confession that was about to unfold. And so, while I continued my routine with my shamelessness intact, with my love divided among three, the tension grew. Because sooner or later, someone would notice. And when that happened, nothing would ever be the same.
The day arrived without warning, as it always does with the harshest truths. I was following my calculated routine, keeping my 3 lovers divided across weeks and schedules, thinking everything was under control, until it wasn't. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was home alone, pretending to work, while the first was sending messages about plans for that night. The second wanted me to call, and the third suggested meeting at a restaurant. The adrenaline was constant, almost ritualistic. But this time, I ignored a detail. Reality had crept up too close without me noticing. My husband had started noticing more than inconsistencies. First, small comments, indirect questions, prolonged looks. Then came the anonymous messages. At first, I thought someone was bothering him, maybe a resentful acquaintance. But no, this wasn't a game. It was a warning. Someone was piecing together the puzzle I had carefully maintained for months. And the worst part? My husband was seeing it all, piece by piece, without me suspecting. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. Not the usual delivery, not a neighbor. It was him. Standing there, wearing that expression I had learned to recognize, a mix of calculated calm and contained fury. I tried to smile, pretending everything was normal, but my legs began to tremble. The tension in the air was heavy, inevitable. He said nothing at first. He just looked at me. No words were needed. I knew he had seen something. I could tell by the way his eyes narrowed, the slight tremor in his jaw, the absolute silence stretching between us. "We need to talk," he finally said. Not shouting, not dramatizing. "Now." I nodded, trying to maintain my composure, but inside, something shattered. I knew I couldn't control what was coming. I followed him to the living room, my heart pounding, each beat a reminder that everything I had built was about to collapse. "I don't understand how you got here," he started, quieter, as if my words could break something irreparably. "I thought we had a life together." "No," I cut him off, firm, looking him straight in the eyes. "We don't have a life. We have months of lies, of secrets, of encounters you didn't even try to hide properly." He paled slightly, but his pride remained intact. He had always been like that, trying to justify the unjustifiable. "It's not what it seems," he said, a classic attempt, the excuse every cheater thinks will work. I stared at him, and for the first time in months, I felt a mix of contempt and liberation. I smiled ironically, letting the silence fill with tension before speaking. "Not what it seems," I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Do you really think I don't know you have someone else too?" His eyes widened, a moment of shock lasting just a fraction of a second before he tried to compose himself. "What? How do you know?" he stammered, trying to control the fury surfacing. A friend told me, I don't need proof. I don't need to keep doubting. It was obvious. And while you played with your lover, I was having fun with mine. The color drained from his face. Incredulity mixed with intense anger, a rage he had held for months, now exploding uncontrollably. "What are you saying?" he yelled, his voice breaking for the first time. "You cheated on me too?" "Yes," I confirmed, firm, proud. 3 men. 3 that you could never see or suspect. You fell for the lie, thinking I was faithful, and look at you now, humiliated, betrayed, exactly what you deserved. His hands shook. He slammed the table, and his attempt to maintain composure crumbled. I stood tall, head high, savoring every second of his disbelief. "You can't talk to me like that," he shouted, rage in every word. "You're no better than me." "Of course I am," I shot back, raising my voice, fearless. I admitted, no hiding, no excuses, while you played the perfect innocent. And now what? Are you going to cry over what you caused yourself? The argument escalated, every line a blow, every accusation a dagger. He tried to justify his infidelity, to blame me for what I had done, but it all sounded empty, ridiculous. I watched, enjoying the irony. He, who had cheated on me, now felt betrayed. "This isn't over," he yelled, trying to reclaim some authority. "You can't just—" "Yes, I can," I interrupted, with all the determination I had built up. "And I am. I'm leaving right now. You and your lies, your arrogance, your useless pride, stay here." I grabbed my bag, walking towards the door with firm steps. He followed, yelling, but I no longer hurt him. Every word leaving his mouth vanished into the air. My mind was clear. It was over, and I had left him exactly where he deserved. "You'll regret this," he yelled, opening his mouth to say more, but I didn't turn back. "It's too late," I yelled from the door, a mix of hatred and liberation. "Enjoy your hell, because I'm no longer part of it." I walked out of the house, closing the door behind me with a firm click, feeling the power of my decision. No tears, no fear, just a deep pride. I had finally given everyone what they deserved. Him, his humiliation. Me, my freedom. As I walked away, a feeling of euphoria mixed with the adrenaline that had accompanied me through my double life. I knew what was coming wouldn't be easy. There would be rumors, questions, curious glances, but I also knew something more important. Finally, I was in control of my story, and he was alone in his. Everyone got what they deserved. Me, my truth. Him, his punishment.